"Because I will chase you," he says with a sinister bend to his voice. "And you don't want to know what happens when I catch you." Nicky St. Croix, the Never King. Saying a child is too young to understand their behavior only works to a certain age. Mental illness can only explain away so much. Past trauma is not a band-aid for poor behavior. But when you're 17, broken, and isolated, you're probably convinced the world is against you. You probably think differently than those around you. Daniel LaPlante certainly seemed to believe he had a pass to behave however he pleased. Consequences be damned. Daniel was born on May 15, 1970, in Townsend, Massachusetts. His parents divorced when he was young, and his mother became a single parent for a while. She would eventually remarry and have 2 more boys with her new husband. With a childhood and adolescence rife with learning disabilities, stress, and alleged sexual abuse, Daniel's upbringing was far from smooth sailing. He struggled with dyslexia from a young age and was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, among other things. With these issues, he understandably struggled in school. Daniel attended elementary school in his hometown of Townsend, but then moved to Fitchburg for high school. This change of location didn't help his situation any. He played football and ran track, but didn't gain any friends from the activities. His classmates called him weird and creepy. The students and teachers at his school described him as a loner. Even the residents of the neighborhood he lived in called him strange and disturbed. Daniel was referred to a psychiatrist in his mid-teens. The doctor diagnosed him with hyperactivity disorder due to his abnormal behavior, appearance, and lack of hygiene. This psychiatrist was one of 3 men Daniel alleged was sexually assaulting him for years. He also pointed the finger at his father and stepfather, with his biological father being the worst offender. However, we only have Daniel's word to go by. Soon, all of Daniel's stress and behavioral issues began to manifest as criminal activity. His favorite pastime seemed to be breaking and entering. In both his hometown of Townsend and his high school town of Fitchburg, Daniel would break into homes, stealing random items just because he could. By the age of 15, he had already been arrested multiple times for burglary and was often found in possession of stolen money and jewelry. Daniel also enjoyed playing mind games with his victims. When he broke into homes, he would move things around, leave objects out of place, and deliberately leave new items behind just to scare the homeowners. One of his just-for-fun break-ins took a dark turn in 1986, when Daniel developed an obsession with schoolmate Tina Bowen. He somehow acquired her phone number and would call their house to talk with Tina and her 9-year-old sister, Karen. Daniel told Tina he got her number from a friend. The pair would talk on the phone multiple times, and Daniel would describe himself as blonde, athletic, and good-looking. After a few calls, he decided to ask Tina on a date. She readily agreed. When Daniel showed up on her doorstep to pick her up, Tina was surprised, to say the least. Daniel was not the dashing young man he described. He was dirty, disheveled, and had greasy brown hair. And yet, Tina still agreed to go out with him. Daniel took Tina to the local fair for their date. He proceeded to ask Tina disturbing questions about her mother, who had recently died of cancer. Tina lasted about an hour before finally leaving the date and returning home. Daniel didn't appreciate being snubbed. Over the course of several weeks in the fall of 1986, he made himself comfortable in the walls of the Bowen home. After breaking into the house, Daniel settled into the crawl space and used it to move between rooms and spy on Tina and her family by poking small peepholes in the walls. While he lived in the walls, he wasn't happy just spying on the family. Daniel decided he needed to haunt them. He moved through the spaces between the walls, banging on them and making ghost sounds. He stole a television remote and changed the channels at random. He also moved items around and took food. On the walls of Tina's bedroom, he would write messages in mayonnaise and ketchup that said, "Marry me," and "I'm in your room. Come find me." Tina grew more and more terrified the longer Daniel haunted them. On December 8th, Tina and Karen returned home and noticed that someone had used their bathroom. Their father, Frank, searched the home from top to bottom and eventually found Daniel hiding inside a wardrobe. If the sight of a strange man hiding in the house wasn't so terrifying, it might have been comical. Daniel wore face paint and a ninja mask, as well as a Native American-style jacket. In one hand he held a hatchet, in the other, a wrench. Daniel forced the family into a bedroom and locked them in before going to find a new hiding place. Tina was able to escape the bedroom through a window and called 911. 2 days later, police found Daniel hiding in the crawl space where he had been living for weeks. He was arrested and sent to a juvenile detention facility. Daniel would remain here until his $10,000 bail could be paid in October of 1987. His mother had to remortgage her house to raise the money. A free man until his trial date arrived, Daniel was not content to sit patiently and wait. He decided now was the perfect time to continue his crime spree. Daniel resumed his breaking and entering on October 14th when he broke into a neighbor's home and stole 2 .22 caliber guns. A month later, on November 16th, he broke into the Gustafson house for the first time. He stole several items from the house, including a cordless phone, 2 cable boxes, a television remote, and some coins from a Liberty Silver dollar collection. While doing some housework, Daniel's stepfather found one of the guns from the October burglary in the teen's laundry basket. He and his wife, Daniel's mother, confronted Daniel about their discovery. Daniel claimed he bought the weapon. Losing that gun was of no consequence to Daniel, as he still had one more stashed away somewhere. On December 1st, 1987, Daniel would take that gun and break into the Gustafsons' home for the second and final time. Around 1 p.m., 33-year-old nursery school teacher Priscilla Gustafson returned home with her young son after picking him up from the babysitter. Daniel was waiting for her. Armed with his second .22 caliber gun, Daniel walked the half-mile through the woods separating his house from Gustafson's and broke in. Using his weapon, Daniel forced Priscilla and her 5-year-old son William into an upstairs bedroom. He shoved William into the closet and tied Priscilla to the bed using a variety of makeshift ligatures. He gagged her with one of his socks before sexually assaulting her. Once he was done with her, he shot her twice in the head at close range, through the pillows. After killing Priscilla, Daniel pulled William from the closet and forced the terrified child down the hall to the bedroom. He then got William into the bathtub and drowned him. Finished with the mother and son, Daniel was on his way out just as 7-year-old Abigail got home from school. He grabbed the girl and dragged her into the downstairs bathroom. Daniel beat the young girl before forcing her into the bathtub and drowning her as well. Andrew Gustafson arrived home from work that day to see a scene no husband and father should ever be witness to. He found Priscilla, who was pregnant with their 3rd child, face down on the bed between blood-soaked pillows. He immediately called the police. Daniel was questioned by police just 2 days after the murders. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough evidence to arrest him at that moment, so they had to leave empty-handed. However, they returned to the house later that day with further questions only for Daniel to flee on foot. Daniel ran until he was able to steal a van, kidnapping the vehicle owner in the process. A manhunt ensued with police officers, dogs, and helicopters combing the area for their suspect. He was spotted while driving in the direction of Ayer, Massachusetts, and pulled over by police. Daniel escaped the vehicle and continued on foot until he reached a lumber yard. Here, he threatened the owner with a gun and then hid in a dumpster. It wasn't long until Daniel was apprehended by 2 police officers. They held him under guard until reinforcements arrived and took him into custody. Daniel's short trial was held a year later, and he was inevitably given 3 life sentences for the murders of Priscilla, William, and Abigail Gustafson. As he was a minor at the time of the killings, the judge was unable to sentence Daniel to death. Daniel has attempted to appeal his sentence many times over the years. At his first appeal, it was mentioned that previous rulings said juveniles convicted of murder should be given meaningful opportunity to re-engage with society. He believed he was owed the same courtesy. On March 22, 2017, the Middlesex Superior Court in Woburn, Massachusetts, held a resentencing hearing for Daniel. A new law allowed for juveniles convicted of murder with extreme cruelty and atrocity to ask for parole after serving a minimum of 30 years. With this in mind, Daniel asked for a reduction in his sentence. Much to his dismay, however, the judge affirmed the standing sentence of 3 life sentences with a chance of parole after a minimum of 45 years served. This ruling came after a forensic psychiatrist reviewed the case and found that Daniel showed no remorse for the crimes he committed. Justice David Lowy commented on the case, saying, "Ultimately, the resentencing judge concluded that although the defendant has shown signs of improved behavior in recent years, his prognosis for rehabilitation in the future is guarded." Daniel LaPlante is currently being held at MCI Norfolk and will be eligible for parole at the age of 62. Wrapped in red flags and warning signs, Daniel seemed destined to commit a heinous crime. Whether his claims of abuse were true or not, Daniel had years of repressed trauma and no healthy way to express himself. So, he expressed himself in the unhealthiest way he could, and he seemed to enjoy himself every step of the way.